I mean, I'd love to say that in the 17 years since I started Redress, I'd love to say, oh, the scenario, it's all better, rosy, rosy, ha, ha, ha. No, it's completely the opposite.
I've got something to say, you should hear it. Oh, I'm happy to make time for your feelings, but you have to.
Hi, and welcome to the Fashion Game Changers podcast. This podcast is dedicated to Fashion 2.0, which for us means an industry that is not only commercially profitable, but also sustainable for the planet. In every episode, we invite industry leaders to talk to us about the state of the industry and how their work is not only challenging, but disrupting the status quo by working with solutions that deliver both commercial and sustainable models to complex problems. I'm Bori, the co-founder of The Note, a peer-to-peer platform that redefines pre-loved fashion by including brands in the circularity equation with the ultimate goal to close the loop of fashion. Before we start, I want to thank Google for Nonprofits for their support and The Note for sponsoring this podcast. Today, I have the truest honor to have Dr. Christina Dean as our guest. Christina is a sustainable fashion advocate who founded Redress, the environmental NGO with a mission to reduce waste in the fashion industry in 2007 in Hong Kong. Christina is also co-author of the consumer guide titled Dress with Sense. She has starred in one of the most provoking movies about the reality of fashion production titled The True Cost, and has hosted Fashion Frontline, a documentary about how designers are challenging the future of fashion. Christina is one of the most respected figures in fashion, especially when it comes to the future of fashion, and has expectedly received numerous recognitions for her work, including by Vogue as one of the UK's top 30 inspirational women. I mean, Christina, thank you for sharing your precious time with us. It really means the world. As we said, you're a veteran in conscious fashion, and I'm saying conscious and not sustainable because when you talk about sustainability, we're touching on the environmental aspect. But conscious is a little bit more comprehensive. We're talking about the environmental aspect, but also about everyone engaged in the value chain, including people. So talk to me about how this journey started for you.
Well, thank you for the very sweet introduction. I was blushing a little bit because I find it quite unbelievable to be raved about so much when I had such humble beginnings and humble endings also. So I accidentally fell into sustainable fashion through having been a journalist writing about environmental issues and having been a dentist. And these are, I say, falling into the fashion industry. You don't really fall into anything.
Yeah.
There was a sort of a domino effect that led me to where I am today. So essentially, as a dentist, I developed and still have a real passion for public health and for people. And I strongly believe that as the stewards of this planet and of many industries, we have a deep, deep responsibility to protect the people on the planet and not just to self-serve. And so when I became a journalist, I wrote about environmental pollution and its effect on public health. And I fell flat on my face, in fact, on the textile industry because I was living in Hong Kong and China. And I was really horrified and remain terribly horrified about fashion's negative environmental impacts, of which the list of nasty stats are longer than my legs. Now, why am I horrified about them? Because in themselves, those stats, so why am I really horrified about that? Just the stats themselves are enough to kind of freak you out, but you've got to realize that those stats ultimately have an impact on people and on their health. And ultimately what happens when people are sick is that they get sick, their productivity drops, and their families are influenced, their health, they die, all these sorts of negative things. So really, I'm a sustainable fashion advocate because I believe that we can do a lot better with the stewarding of the fashion industry. Yeah.
I actually, it's funny because I also used to live in Hong Kong. We actually never met there personally, I believe, but I went to university in 2013 and I was never into fashion. I'm not a fashionista. And it was one of my first courseworks at 2013. And I chose my topic to be to assess the impact of fashion. So I started to research, and the numbers which I got were, wow, is this truly happening? This is going to blow up at some point. So actually, this is how I entered into sustainable fashion, and now like more than 10 years from that moment on, I still work towards help solve the problem. So if we have to define one problem is there one problem in fashion which takes the lion's share in terms of the impact that we're seeing these days?
Well, yes, environmentally, if we're going to talk about environmentally, well, the kind of obvious problem that's really difficult to address is overproduction and overconsumption. So that is the problem.
Yeah.
Because when you produce, you create carbon. So if you keep producing clothes, then you keep producing carbon, greenhouse gases, obviously, waste, chemicals, land loss, biodiversity loss. So everything follows production.
Yeah.
Even if you like make something a little bit better, it's still production, everything goes with it. So that's the real problem. But the second problem, and it doesn't matter if you make one item or 100 billion items, is that the majority of the environmental impact, i.e. negative environmental impact, is laid down when you extract the fibers from the earth. So whether it's, let's just say, polyester or cotton, just to be grossly simplified. So essentially, from the raw material and fiber extraction, that's where the lion's share, and then the fabric processing, that's where it all happens. And then there's many other things that happen after that.
Okay.
So it's baked in the fabric.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're dealing a lot with addressing those two. Fashion waste is, it comes a little bit later, but it's again very directly correlated with how much we produce. The more we produce, the more waste we have. So you've dedicated a lot of your work, and correct me at any point where I'm wrong, to reducing fashion's waste naturally. What have been successes and failures? Because you have been doing this for a very long time, and I have follow-up questions on that as well. But how quickly are we seeing results? Are we late to fixing fashion? What are your learnings from all of the projects working with even some of the giants as well?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd love to say that in the 17 years since I started Redress, I'd love to say, oh, the scenario, it's all better, rosy, rosy, ha, ha, ha. No. It's completely the opposite. Despite the fact that we've been working like crazy and there's so much more awareness about the problems and the solutions, the problems have only got worse. So there's no sort of rose-tinted way to look at the fashion industry. And again, that is because of production, and it's only set to increase in terms of global demand for fashion, for leather, for footwear, for accessories. And that is in part because we're a growing population, but that doesn't answer it all. I mean, come on, we're not growing that big. And so we can work as hard as we can, and we can raise awareness, we can find solutions, we can collaborate, we can go to conferences, we can write PhDs. That's not me.
Not you.
And we can do that till the cows come home. But until we really find an economically viable solution that will enable us to reduce production and consumption.
Is there such, or do you feel there is a multitude of solutions that need to come together?
There's everything needs to come together at the same time, and it needs to have come together yesterday, and it's definitely not happening.
Okay. If we want to be concrete about, let's say, if we were to have limitless budget, limitless talent right now, today, what would be the key steps that you think need to come together? The key components that need to come together.
So you mean we could retrain the whole fashion industry? So
anything is limitless. What would be, like, if you had to structure from scratch fashion? What would you do?
Well, I mean, this is fantasy talk, but why I said retrain the whole fashion industry is because that sort of needs to happen, and particularly at the design stage, where supposedly 80% of the environmental impact of a product is laid down. So the design stage is basically currently helter-skelter, chaotic and mad, because there's not a vision for circularity at the design stage. So, but that's, as I said, design stage. But then if you go to the financial, the CFO of companies, they need to be more involved in the design stage also. So, but that's not bold enough for your question. So the first thing is I'd retrain everyone, right, in the industry. But the second thing is I'd actually wake consumers up. Number one, most people working in sustainable fashion hate the word consumers. As we know, Ursula de Castro many years ago, because she's Italian, she probably speaks Latin. I hope she does. She first coined that, and I've borrowed it so many times, but to consume means to destroy through use. And definitely, if you give me a banana, I'm going to consume it, because it's going to be destroyed through me eating it. But that shouldn't be the case for clothes. So what I would like to do in this fantasy world that we live in is to tell consumers to wake up, smell the coffee, because we, and I hate to be critical of consumers, but I would want everybody to understand that we're citizens of fashion. And that means that we can beautifully partake in it. We can enjoy it, love it. You can shop, you can resell it, you can do so many things. But we need to wake up and have a bit more respect for the people who are also living in this planet. What I really, really hate about so much of the world is that, and this is going to sound really awful, I am a Westerner, but I just generally find that a lot of people in the West consume, and they point angry fingers at other countries that are having a huge negative impact, but they're wearing the fibers from fashion. They're wearing the fibers from China or the production from India or Bangladesh, whatever. I mean, I'm not going to locate all the supply chain, but basically 60% of the world's fashion, apparel and textiles is coming from APAC. So coming back to your question, I hate to be preachy and I'm not preachy. And in the world of public health, coming back to dentistry and oral cancer, I used to be really big on oral cancer, lung cancer, because a lot of people smoke in the world, don't know how many anymore, and that causes cancer. But there's no point in telling people, well, you shouldn't smoke, and you put the horrible, scary photos on the packet, right? People don't really want to be told that. So it's in a way similar with fashion. Like, no one wants to be told, don't do this, you shouldn't do that. And I hate to tell anyone that, because I also feel that there's a whole narrative in sustainable fashion, which is that people who buy from ultra-fast fashion are bad. And that's just a really unkind thing to cast on other people, because there are some people that's what they can afford. So the question about awakening consumers to make them fashion citizens is where they're at in their personal budgets, that we can all do much more and much better.
I always repeat myself when I say that if we need to have a solution that works, it should not be a trade-off. So you should still offer affordable items. They should just be as accessible as fast fashion. They should just be as diverse as fast fashion, because let's face it, I mean, we're genetically programmed for instant gratification. Even when it comes to occasions, it's no longer planning for 3 months ahead so that you can plan well your attire, etc. So you find out you need to go somewhere tonight, so you drop off and you need to buy the thing today. So you cannot, even if you want to shop from a sustainable brand, which is more expensive and has less diversity. I mean, there are no stores for sustainable fashion available in most countries in the world. It's online only, and you have VAT, duties, etc. So if we want to have a solution for the consumer, I just personally feel it's a responsibility of businesses to make it more accessible at an affordable cost. And
but I mean, that's true, but we are intelligent human beings, and we have to also recognize that reckless fashion consumption is reckless. So it's definitely a takes two to tango scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's a lot about also the concept of tragedy of the commons. So if you have something which is mutual, in this case, I'm talking about the impact of fashion affecting our daily lives. If you're one single conscious consumer, and let's say you are very conscious about what you're buying, you buy less, you circulate, you buy it secondhand, etc. I mean, you're still going to know that you live in a society where 99% of people are still not being conscious. So you a little bit lose faith in in your actions being a game changer to some extent.
I don't know that's true.
Yeah.
Because I think if you have personal conviction, then if you have conviction, you just carry on doing that.
Yeah. I have met such people. I mean, I was last week, I was at a hen's party, and one woman, I mean, I was just amazed because in the country in which we were in, sustainable fashion is not really a big thing, but then she was vegan. She was very and she said, I just shop from, for example, from Stella McCartney because, this is the only brand which offers, for example, cool vegan options. So I was very impressed that, she was standing by her values, and, she would go beyond what was convenient and accessible. So I do agree with you. We have these advocates of change. The newer generations are definitely, more collective in their desire to protect the planet and just be driven less by vanity. So before I go to this question about vanity, which for me and for my co-founder Anna is very important, I want to go back to retraining fashion as well. So the consumer we covered a little bit. Then when it comes to the brands and producers, what do you mean by retrain? Is it how we think about design? What
a lot of it would, I mean, because I work within, so Redress's mission is to transition towards a circular economy by educating designers and consumers. And so we've picked 2 stakeholder groups that are achievable for us to approach. So why do I say designers? Because the design stage, which is more than the designers, it's the designers, product developers, and merchandisers, and creative director maybe. So there's a number of stakeholders within the design stage, because that influences 80% of the environmental impact of a product. So imagine if you were an architect, you build a building that's going to last, it's going to be energy efficient, and it's going to stand the test of time, and it's going to be perhaps if you want to add an extension, right? You're smart, you spend years at the design stage and you get it right, because it's very expensive to build a property and then go, oh, sorry, wrong materials, knock it down. Yeah. So we need to be looking at the design stage with integrity and with a lot more full 360 thinking. I was, a long time ago, I was with a friend in New York, Timo Riisanen, who's got a PhD in zero design. And I asked him over coffee, I just said, what is it? How can we make fashion more sustainable? How do you think designers could really do it? What's your key nugget of information? And if he ever listens to this, he'll laugh, because it was a very flyaway comment, but it really hit me. And he said that his top tip at the design stage is to put more love into that. And I thought that kind of sums it up. And it sounds very woo-woo to say we need more love in the world, but we just need more consideration and more time and effort. And I was recently speaking with some graduates, fashion designers who are recently graduating. And one of the things that I said is, do you really want to do it? If you want to go into the fashion industry, people should only come to this industry if they're going to bring solutions. Don't just come do the same old stuff. We've got enough of that. So the re-education of the fashion industry is to bring people who are going to authentically, determinedly make it better. And I was also borrowing something from Jonathan Churn, who was at Levi's. I hope I'm getting that right. I know he was at Levi's. On a podcast, he said at the heart of any designer should be the desire to do better than everything that's out there in the industry. So designers should improve. They should design things for the future, design things that we need. We don't need any more clothes that don't solve a problem at the moment in the industry.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a very long answer because I can't even remember what the question was.
No, I have. So you were saying that designers need to think more about integrating circularity within their design, and I think it's very important. When I was in university many years ago, a lot of times we were talking about you need to build a scalable business. You need this. You need that. For me, it's important that we get to some specifics about what does it mean to create a circular design? Is it that we, for example, we don't use mixed materials? Because I think a lot of the designers, this is touching on education as well. What is recyclable? For example, you learn design, but then you don't learn about, for example, the ACA of textiles, which textile, is made using less resources, which is more recyclable, which is degradable, etc. So is it, that we need to take care of what materials we use? Is it that we need to take care about, for example, all of the details and hardwares, because as we know, the recycling of jeans is, they actually can be recyclable, but the cost of cutting out all of the metal hardware, zippers, it's taking so much cost that it's actually not financially efficient for this item to be recycled. So we need to think about this as well. So how do you, in your work, do you integrate, for example, this love for design, thinking about the future in the design? What is education needed? Is it already there?
Okay, well, first, let me say a little bit about circularity. So the first thing, and I'm borrowing another friend of mine, Cressy, Elvis, from Elvis and Cressy, the brand. She said once that circularity is like the Holy Grail, and circularity is like a religion. So you've kind of got to just believe it's going to happen, because circularity requires so many of the fashion industry, from the consumers, the designers, the recyclers, the sorters, the investors, everyone has to do it. So at the design stage, you have to have faith that the circular economy is actually going to work. So then how does the designer actually do it? Well, it's from the materials that you choose, exactly what you said, that they are durable, safe, low impact processes, perhaps regenerative, if, sourcing organic or regenerative materials. So they are good, safe, durable, decent materials that we first put in, and they are certainly not blended. So everything starts with the material, really, and in it comes, and then the designers are thinking about the use phase once they've created it, it must be desirable and durable.
Yeah,
and
it
needed.
must be desirable and durable.
Yeah, and then, you know, how's the consumer user going to use it, reuse it, style it, mend it, keep it in use for as long as possible. And then ultimately the designer, again at the design stage, they have to be thinking that one day this garment might be too ripped, too shredded, cannot be sewn up, whatever, can't be swapped, and that will have to go into recycling. So how is it going to be disassembled? And how is it going to be recycled? So it's just not good enough to sit at the design stage going, oh, I fancy a pink mini skirt. No. You've got to really imagine that whole piece, and you have to imagine that the circular economy is up and running, meaning that we have recycling infrastructure in place, which basically we don't. So it's about just doing better. You know, we've all got to, I mean, I was on a panel, listening to a panel yesterday, and somebody said, and I won't say who it was, someone said, oh, we've all got to up our game. And I thought, oh yeah, well, but actually it's kind of true. So we've got to up our game at the design stage and basically be a bit braver to create something that's you know, much more desirable.
What are the best resources for young designers or people wanting to go into fashion design that you can recommend?
Well, one of the problems about education, I'm not an education expert, but we have worked with around 150 university partners around the world. And so through that experience, which is like a decade of work, we have discovered, which perhaps should be no surprise, that curriculums are jammed. It's very difficult to start changing curriculums around. You know, you can't just like suddenly rip up the curriculum and just start a new one. So that's a problem. So what we've done in response to that, being a non-profit trying to identify a problem and deal with it, is to create educational materials for designers. So these are really targeted at emerging fashion designers and newly qualified designers in the startup scene. So we've got educational materials around every stage of the supply chain to help, whether it's videos, design guides, etc., in multiple different languages, because there isn't enough out there for them to get going.
If I'm not mistaken, at the Art Collective, which is another initiative from Redress, you're working with designers to create designs from dead stock. And then you've actually, what for me was really impressive and I find very powerful, is that it's also about commercializing these items. So you were able to actually get them to Link Crawford, which for people listening, if they don't know, because I know in Europe maybe it's not that famous, but it's one of the biggest and most prestigious retail spaces out there. So how were these items purchased? Did they find their commercial purpose? Because you said you need to create something desirable, and actually this I find is a pivotal point in you wanting to do a brand that at the end of the day you need to know or test that it's going to be sold, because otherwise it's just another piece being created.
Okay, so I'm just going to change my hat and put the Art Collective hat on. So the Art Collective is a business, social impact business that I started, and we work with luxury brands on their excess fabrics. And the reason that I started it was because for the previous 10 years, we had various luxury brands and groups and premium luxury brands and groups and even fast fashion businesses offering the donation of enormous amounts of materials, like phenomenal, like one, and I've said it before, and I never say which companies that we work with, and this is the company that we do not work with, but in 2014, a company came to us with 1 million yards of excess fabric in China.
Wow.
And that was like, genuinely, I was like, whoa, how does a company have 1 million yards of fabric waste, basically? And again, we don't work with them. Not because we wouldn't, it's just, I just don't know. We do work with amazing brands, and that scenario wasn't one of them. So basically, I started the business to provide a win-win solution to excess materials. And when I talk about excess materials, I'm talking about phenomenal amounts of end-of-roll, part-made garments, or finished garments that haven't been sold. So that's kind of what the Art Collective does. It is complicated, but to your question, we first started a women's wear fashion brand that was using the fabric from other luxury businesses and making women's wear. And yes, we got an Lane Crawford, we got an Net-a-Porter, and I thought, holy crap, how on earth did we do that? Because I'm not really that much into fashion, if I'm very honest with you. And so we had a lot of successes, but we had two problems. To answer your question, was about desirability. It's very difficult to make something that's desirable and sell it direct to consumer, etc. And so what we are trying to do at the Art Collective is to provide a solution to excess materials. And what I learned, because of failure, actually, was that making a women's wear brand was not the way to get rid of a lot of waste. So what we've done is we're now a B2B business, and we make corporate gifts for global banks made from luxury brands, excess material. So we can like get an order that's huge for wholesale, and we'll get through these fabrics. And basically what we're doing is we're finding a decent life for unwanted materials whilst vitally eradicating and replacing the need to use virgin materials.
Yeah, I love it. I'll mention one company. It's not like a famous company or anything, but a company in India. It's called Not a Virgin, and I thought, oh, how cute that is.
Cute.
But they use, for example, sheets from hotels which are already not in use because they're amortized, or so table clothing, etc. And they make these corporate bags. Exactly as you said, they print them, and I just thought that the logo was very cute. Not a Virgin, and we're still clients up to today. I wanna go into a question that might be a little bit uncomfortable, but I find myself like asking this question so often. So we recently met at one of the most established sustainable fashion events. And so it was founded by, like it's the whole idea, like it is all about sustainability, right? So I just wanted to make that clear. It's not a conference with a touch of sustainability. It was all about sustainability. And then there was a gala dinner, and everyone, in sustainability was wearing this brand new, beautiful dress, brand new shoes, hair, makeup, everything. And I was asking myself, to what extent do we all believe in sustainability and we live it and preach it? Why do we still need this vanity? And then I see you, like I see this gorgeous woman wearing, amongst all of the gala dresses, I see someone wearing a basic white t-shirt which says "End fast fashion" that I've seen you with before, and I was like, this is it. This is what we need. I mean, it should not be about vanity. If we are in sustainable fashion, we need to, like, especially if we're the people leading it, we should be the one living it and breathing it. So it just, for me, it's always, why do we need all of this? Why do you need to put high heels which are made of leather and make your brain hurt? Not to talk about the feet. But it is. But we see it. I mean, it is still part of our thinking, still part of our lifestyle. So, from your work with NGOs, with startups, with major brands, how much do you actually believe that sustainability is truly a value and not just a trend that brands are trying to tap into just so that they do they tick the box of sustainability?
Well, by virtue of having a sieve, meaning who I'm actually working with, I definitely believe that they 100% want to do the right sustainable choice. So, but then I've filtered out a lot of companies that we don't work with. So to answer your question, I'm either naive, stupid, or way too optimistic, or all of them. But I genuinely believe the best in the companies that we either directly work with. And you know what? I actually really believe that most of the fashion industry wants to do much better, but it's very difficult for change to happen. I can't believe I'm saying that because it's so boring. However, my experience is that some of the greatest activists are working in some of the filthiest businesses. And that's why I would never poo-poo anyone working in a ultra-fast or even ultra expensive, because the people behind these brands are amazing. And I think for me, that's what's really given me so much love of the fashion industry, is that there are so many passionate people working within it who really believe in it. And for that, that's what keeps me very much motivated. But the other thing I was going to say is to slightly sort of, not disagree, but to somewhat disagree with the idea of whichever conference we're talking about and everyone's looking plush and new high heels and all that. I actually think that's to be celebrated in many ways because, ultimately the fashion industry is highly creative, highly beautiful. It makes us feel amazing. It makes us feel alive. And it also covers our boobs and our arse. It's got a functional part, thank God. So my point is, I think in celebrating the pomp and the feathers and the leather, and I'm not promoting that, but the pomp, all this. I think that's fine if people want to do that because some of these, that's what some people want to do. And the older I get, I just say, just do what you want to do, but do it as well as possible. So for me, what I'm saying is I think people can walk the walk and be the most ethical, outrageously radical, ethical fashion activist, and still, I believe they can still wear new clothes. Yeah. I, on the other hand, haven't worn new clothes for 11 years. I have bought some knickers in that time, the odd pair of pants for special occasions. And my shoes are mainly secondhand, but underwear is not, because I mean, I could buy secondhand pants, but honestly, really.
We're allowed to, to
the odd treat.
To go new in that domain. What has been your experience working with startups? Because you work with NGOs, with startups, and with large brands. Do you work with governments as well, with regulations, or not so much?
Not so much regulations, but we have government sponsors, and we've worked with the United Nations different departments.
How important for you, how necessary do you feel are startups in your companies in innovation for the transition towards not just circularity, but a more ethical industry?
So the question is, what is the importance of startups?
Yeah, and innovation.
Well, someone described it to me as, the fashion industry is like a container ship, it's going and it can't stop. And then, all of the startups are like little jet skis, and they're all like roughing up and showing a new way. So because of that, they're obviously incredibly important. Yeah. And I think the big businesses, they do look at startups. We know that there's a huge amount of investment from big businesses who want to co-invest into solutions that they can grab it and put it into their, into their container ship. So absolutely, it's 100% necessary. And if you look over let's just say if we were to plot a graph, and I'm making this up, but I know it's kind of true, but if we plotted a graph from like 2000 till today, so time set against innovation, startups along the supply chain, whether it's, dyes to end of life to resale, whatever, you can see that it's going like this. We're just getting more and more and more of them. So that is exciting. Yeah. Okay, but then the next problem, you didn't ask me that question, but I'm going to tell you the problem, which is that there's a huge amount of capital and investment that wants to do ESG, social impact, good investing, whatever word you want to use, responsible investing. But it's not yet flowing into all of these startups. Yeah, perhaps in the tech space it is, but not so much in the kind of gritty, grimy recycling, circular solutions startups. It's not quite coming, but it will come, I think. Yeah.
I mean, coming from the from the startup perspective, we're said that there is a lot of capital. At the same time, this capital is very hard to get. You're always either too early or too late, or you need to prove traction before getting money, and you're like, is it the chicken or the egg? We just need to get this going. So personally, I find that governments, if you get grants, more grants are great, simply because when we're talking about a grant, you are putting some money into something that might not succeed. You're not looking at financial return. So it's okay to give a little bit of money to see if it works. If it works, great, because we need it. Whereas with venture capital, you always need to prove that you're going to make this money back. But to prove it, you need a little bit of cash. So I would feel that governments, we should streamline the process a little bit of getting grants,
but also philanthropy.
But
I think even philanthropy is changing somewhat to have like a slightly blended philanthropic sort of strategy to, imagine there was a little bird and it was about to sort of jump off out of a tree. You need like a little bit of philanthropy, a little bit of kindness, and a bit of a grant just to like help it, and then off it can go.
I feel within the UK there is the UK is, I feel, like philanthropy friendly country. You have these programs such as SEIS and EIS, which are, so practically you can invest your taxable money into startups, and then you're virtually, instead of investing your taxes, you're investing them into startups, getting equity. So this is very friendly, I think, structure for investors. I wanted to also talk about you have been into conscious fashion for a long time, and working for an NGO also could be very, very, very exhaustive. Have there been any moments where you felt like your efforts are just worthless and you wanted to give up? And what made you going?
I've never really wanted to give up, but I once hit a wall. It was about 12 years ago. The wall was like, there was no money, there was some HR issues, not like bad ones, but just like key people not there. And the wall was just fear. And it was the only time where I thought, actually, do you know what? I don't think I can get through this, because I don't have the money, I don't have the people. And then my goal, so I was like, come on, we're going to get through this somehow. And so the way over the wall was not to like creep around it. It was to smash it down and like climb much higher. So basically at that point where I could have just rolled over, I decided to do something a little bit more outrageous, which was to sort of double the dream of the project, double the dream of the budget, double the dream of how big the team was going to be to deliver on that project. And that's how we got over it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you feel, so did you hit those double targets or did you hit a little bit less than the
I don't
the
remember
targets?
the exact KPIs, but the doubling that I'm explaining was like, don't just roll over, but actually get up and jump even harder.
Okay.
So that's that's the only time I've really had to do that, actually.
I was asking because if there is a listener who is an entrepreneur, we faced in our last round, we faced for the first time the problem of, oh, you're raising too little. You know, you need to dream bigger. You need to make sure that once you get this idea going, you have the capital to really make it work. Because actually, one of the hardest thing in running a startup business, not the large business, is you know, it's not the hardest part is not figuring out a great genius idea. It is getting to people. You know, because it has gotten immensely expensive to get to people with. You know, the marketing budgets of, you know, all of the giants worth hundreds of millions. You know, you need to have a smart way to cut through the noise and get to your customer. So yeah, thank you for this perspective. And on the opposite side of the question, what was a moment that you felt like it's so worth it and you truly felt like you made a change?
I think, you know, it's always like that because I happen to love it. So, you know, I love it. So we make changes all the time. And sometimes we don't even celebrate them. Yeah. Because
we're horrible at celebrating it, our team.
But that's the nature of like, you know, if you're bolting for something that you love and you've got loads of passion and ambition, you know, let's go, and then, you know, and then you don't often sit back and say, hey, wow, that's amazing. And so, but why do you need to anyway? I mean, like, you know, I can't, what was your question? What was
a moment that made you feel like?
I tell you, there is always a moment that I get a bit weepy over, and it's like my heart just melts a little bit, and it's the magic of our work, and it has happened quite a few times. So we run a sustainable fashion design competition, and every year we have these amazing designers from all over the world. They are full and pumped of the beauty, like we're going to change this industry, and they will.
How's it called? Runway?
The Redress Design Awards.
The Redress Design Award. It was. I remember I was there at the Hive in Hong Kong in I don't know what year, but in the finals.
And I tell you when I get most emotional on that project is actually because I'm always backstage with them, and so when they come to take their finale, their pieces come out. It's all made out of waste and innovative this, circular that, new threads, new technology, new this, then new that, everything, and it's also got a lot of heart in terms of, you know, diversity and inclusion, etc. So there's a lot of passion that goes into these pieces. It's not just about passion, but it's meaning. Yeah. It's like, that's what fashion should be. And it's just, when I see those designers go out onto the runway and I can hear everyone clapping, and I find it so beautiful, because if someone has a dream, and for the Redress Design Award, we just like, it's like that little bird flying out of a tree, off you go. And that is the future of the fashion industry, and it's definitely changing. So I'll go to my grave with all of the same problems. And even though I've worked my nuts off for most of my career, I won't really have made a dent. But all this new industry that's coming in, they will do it.
Yeah, but you have been the one to pave the way for them. So
we're just sort of beating the drum and taking them along.
Well, you are facilitating this, and I mean you're excellent, I think, at being humble, at being gorgeous at all times, whatever T-shirt you're wearing at whatever occasion. Do you attribute your energy and your passion to any specific habit that you have, any specific mindset that you have that you would like to share with us?
Well, I've only got more humble the older I've got. And I think I was probably a nightmare to work with when I was younger, because I think it was more like me, here I go. And now I hope I'm not like that anymore. So the mindset, to answer your question, is about how do we all go better together. Now the team will probably say, as I said, I probably need to go on some management course because I'm probably the worst person to work with. However, in my heart, I want us all to do well.
You're not. I've
together.
Worked with you. You're an incredible person to work with. A perfectionist, but with a lot of fun on the way.
Well, thank you very much. But so I think my mindset is that we're always going to do better together. And I always think that there's a way out of things. So that gets me going. And also, I actually really do, I hate the word collaboration because collaboration is, yeah, we know that. However, can you actually do it?
Yeah.
Can you collaborate? Because it's not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah.
And I think that's so sometimes where I might meet a challenge in myself, like if it's my own ego or I've got a conflict of interest or whatever these like internal things are, I try to be humble and collaborative and to take everyone along. Now that's probably complete and utter rubbish, but that's what I think today.
No, I find it very reasonable. And you've always had a vision, and it's very admirable that throughout the years you have managed to stick to a vision and be consistent, because I've seen a lot of examples where you're trying to find yourself and this is fine, but the way it's packaged is this is it, and then you try and then it fails, and then you have the new thing which is okay, now this is it. And so you have stayed very, very consistent with your brand, and by brand I mean your vision, your values, the way you position everything, the honesty and authenticity with which you talk about things. You have been very present. You haven't been lazy. I mean, it hasn't been this I'll try, see what it happens attitude, but you can feel that you're all into the mission. Clearly, you've been recognized by everyone that can recognize you. UBS calls you a global visionary, and so what would be the grand vision, the grand global vision for fashion in your eyes?
I think the grand global vision for fashion would be that we could recycle mixed fibers.
Okay.
Yeah.
They are actually, I see a lot of startups popping up that are able to do this.
At scale.
Yeah, at scale. Well,
yeah. That's the problem, because it definitely can be done, even like pre-industrial and in terms of scale.
Yeah.
So I would love to see that, because we are so intelligent. Why can we not? And the why we cannot is because it's, as I said before, like circularity, you can think of it as it's like a nirvana, or it's like a religion, you don't even know if it's true, or another way that I personally describe it is like a team sport. So if we want to win this game, then we need our midfielder, attacker, defender, everybody, they need to be on the ball, and they need to be fit, well-funded, everybody needs to be ready to rock and roll, and then circularity will happen.
Yeah.
But if we've got like some like useless teammate that has got no money, no know-how, no infrastructure, then we are all going to lose.
Yeah.
So my big, bold dream for the fashion industry, whatever your question was, is that we can work as a team, we can all get ourselves extremely fit, healthy, well-fed, and then we're going to bloody well win this game. Yeah.
Is the aligning happening?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But we need money. Everything needs money.
Okay.
And the investors are not really ready to put money into company A, because company A needs B, C, D, E, F, G in order to grow.
Exactly. So this is why I'm asking about if there is an aligning between everyone, between the government, between investors, like the private and the public sector, between startups and the large companies. Because what we face a lot of times is, we talk to investors about our idea and they're saying, great, do you have any brand clients? And then we go to brands and they're like, listen, we need a year to pull this through, because we're not a startup. There are 50,000 people through which this decision needs to go through. So then we tell investors, yes, we have, but you need to be patient. But then they're like, oh no, we need growth, we need revenue. So for us, it's a different perspective, clearly. It's not the aligning of the fashion industry. For us, it's aligning commercial goals with sustainable goals, with investor goals, with the goals of the brands, because they have, every single brand is a universe of its own, how you plan your calendar, your collections, your campaigns, etc. So it is, I feel it's a massive challenge in the positive sense that we need to find a way for all of us to be gathering at the same table. It doesn't matter how big or how small you are. It turns out that we are necessary to transition to a more circular model. We're not touching, however, sorry, because I'm more on the environmental side, but we're not touching on the ethical side of fashion. What is the state of the ethical fashion currently?
I couldn't answer that with a huge amount of intelligence. I'm not an expert on the sort of more ethical. If ethical relates to human rights and wages, etc., I'm not an expert on that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a very short answer. I mean, I can talk about it, but the way I would talk about it is not the detail, but the concept. Because when I think about the circular fashion system, I think about it in material flows. So I imagine the materials and fibers swirling around and being reused, But actually, on top of that, beside it, beneath it, wherever you want to position it, those are humans that are making that happen. The beauty of that is that we can invite so many more people into this system to have jobs. And a lot of those people are sort of more marginalized, less educated, if we're looking at sorting infrastructure, as one example. So the fashion industry could actually support more people in terms of employment, which is phenomenal given that supposedly 1 in 6 of the global people are involved in the fashion industry. So I'm not going to answer your question, but just to say that you can think about it as material flow and you can think about it as human capital, and they're obviously the same thing.
Very tied together.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so in such case, I would love to transition to the personal side. For me, people who are game changers, you probably are not.
Do I need my therapist right now?
Yeah, you're very humble and you're not going to say you are a fashion game changer, but you have been really one of the most consistent people in driving the change. And for me, it's important to understand how are you managing to stay sane, if it's hard at all, but how are you balancing personal and and your business life?
Well, I'm balancing it really, really well.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm balancing it, there's 2 reasons why I'm balancing
because
it.
you're also traveling in between continents, you have children, so you are a very busy person.
Yeah, well, my neighbour said to me, and she's a busy woman, she says she's never going to say she's a busy woman ever again, and I copied that, because everyone's busy. So the way that I cope with my personal private life is this. The first thing is I really love what I do. So the blurring of work means that I love it. If I didn't do it, I would be the most horrific mother. So actually work gives me so much to my life. So that's really important, thank goodness.
I feel the same,
Yeah. But what I've discovered of late in my maturing is that I can only do what I can do. You've got 24 hours a day, so do I. And we're going to sleep for some of them. You want to have a balanced life. You want to have a bit of exercise, maybe see some friends, have some fun, and work.
Yeah.
So basically...
And take care of the kids.
Oh, and the kids, they come into. So no, I've actually changed my expectations of what I am able to achieve, but I'm also much more realistic at what am I the best at, and I'm going to go and do more of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is very comforting for me as a woman and entrepreneur, as a mother. We were talking with the team last night that a lot of times I go to bed with anxiety when work finishes. I love work, and thank God, as you said, that I have work, because I would be a horrific person without it. And when I go to bed and I try to put work aside, everything is coming in. Be like, am I taking enough care of the kids? Am I taking care of the team? So it's a lot of anxiety coming in from all of the responsibilities. And I think what I'm learning now is that you're never going to have this calmness and routine that you're after. You just need to get used to the fact that it is going to be dynamic. You're always going to be worrying if you're doing your best. And it's much better to focus on what you're good at and invest more of your time and energy on being positive about the good things that you're doing. Okay, what will be a I want to move into the a little bit more of the standard flash blitz questions that we have. What is a book you love that you would recommend?
Oh, I'm reading a fantastic book at the moment, but I can't remember the title, so I'll have to think of a different one. I suppose The Body Keeps the Score.
Okay, I haven't heard of this one.
Yeah, it's all about trauma and sort of wellness.
Okay, we're going to try to link it into the description. We're also new at this, so we'll find the ways. Are you listening to podcasts? Any podcast you would recommend?
I love The Diary of a CEO.
Okay.
Love.
Cool.
Yeah.
You'll link that too. What is the best habit that you have?
Yoga.
Yoga, great. 3 things you're grateful for?
I'm grateful for my health, my kids, and my mental health. Maybe
God,
that's
you're
the same.
So good at this. Yeah. I cannot answer that fast. Who is a fashion game changer that you think we should invite to the podcast?
Ursula de Castro.
Okay. feel invited. We're going to extend a personal invite. Christina, thank you so much for your time. It's an absolute honor seeing you every time. I want to take a second just to tell you that the energy that you have is absolutely contagious. It's unbelievable how determined you are, how positive you are, and how much you shine through. It means a lot that we have been able to talk to you throughout the years and to have your time dedicated to this podcast now. Keep on doing what you're doing. There are people like us and thousands of others recognizing it. The industry as a whole, clearly, it is making a difference. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Always a pleasure, and I'm happy that we get to spend a little bit more time together. So, thank you so much, guys, for listening as well. Feel free to explore more of our episodes with with more exciting game changers that we have had the honor of having. And of course, subscribe to the channel, follow us, share to help us spread the word, and ask the questions about circular fashion, conscious fashion that you feel are most important to be answered. So thank you once again for listening, and we'll chat soon.